Thank you so much for joining. My name is Eleanor Webster and I'm head of the Mission Innovation Secretariat. It is a great pleasure to welcome you all today. Today's event is a Mission Innovation think tank event focused on unlocking finance for clean energy innovation. We've been thrilled to work really closely with our newest MI collaborating organisation, the European Investment Bank, or EIB, to present this event for you today. Financing innovation, including to the demonstration phase, has been a key theme for knowledge sharing through the think tank over the past year. And in terms of the history of where this topic is coming from for MI, is that in October 2023, there was an inaugural MI think tank event called a Financing Masterclass, which was hosted by the United States. And this initiated the work of the think tank on this topic. And it brought together MI member governments and key partners to discuss the financing tools to scale up clean energy innovation. Today's event continues that discussion on financing, focusing on the specific finance mechanisms that can be deployed to support clean energy innovations, and importantly, discuss how innovators can access that financing. We have a fantastic lineup of speakers and experts for today's event, and we're also looking forward to hearing from all of you and your experiences from entrepreneurs and innovators during the discussion period, and we'll take your questions. Today's event is exactly the kind of discussion that we hope to continue to convene through the MI think tank. And the think tank is something that I'm really proud of, and Patrick has done a fantastic job in spinning this module up within MI. The think tank was only launched this time last year in July 2023, and it was designed to accelerate knowledge sharing among MI members and put our members in contact with partners on key cross-cutting topics. And financing is a key example of this because it covers so many different parts of innovation and also cuts across so many different stakeholders. So different MI members are leveraging different mechanisms to provide financing for clean energy innovators. Today's event provides an opportunity for us all to learn from each other, first and foremost, and also to continue the conversation on this important topic. And a think tank provides a really important mechanism for us to workshop these challenges, share our best practices, and move towards solutions on these cross-cutting issues. And each time we have one of these think tank events, we learn more and more and more. And so the next event can be even more focused than the one before it. So certainly we're seeing the value of the think tank, even though it's just 1 year old. And the think tank is extremely flexible, and we can respond to emerging issues and member needs as we see fit. So our goal is to help MI members learn from each other and keep addressing common challenges to strengthen MI's collaboration with our global partners, increase our visibility and outreach by disseminating knowledge to the broader clean energy innovation community. So thank you all for your time today. Very much looking forward to this discussion. To note that this event is being recorded, and then following the event, we will do an MI think tank report, which highlights the key learnings from the event and will be shared online alongside the recording from this event. So thank you once again for joining today. It's a real pleasure to be part of this discussion. And kicking off today's event, I would like to invite Alessandro Izzo, the Director of Equity, Growth Capital and Project Finance at the European Investment Bank, to share a few opening words. Thank you all and enjoy the session.
Thank you very much, Eleanor, for the scene setter, and good morning, everybody. It is indeed inspiring to hear about made in creating a global community dedicated to promoting clean energy technologies. The recent annual gathering highlighted the critical financing gaps faced by clean innovators, startups and companies striving to scale up and commercialize technologies, green technologies. We all perceive the urgency of speeding up and scaling up deployment of green technologies. Hence, I think it's indeed timely that the European Investment Bank Group joined and becomes more actively engaged with Mission Innovation. Our partnership will deliver mutual benefits through continuous exchange on the status of development of innovative green technologies, initiatives to support acceleration, the implementation, and fundamentally hastening our collective race against climate change. And I repeat, accelerating the green transformation of our economy worldwide is the imperative. The European Union is a global political leader in the fight against global warming, with the EU Green Deal setting the direction. And this initiative has fostered a vibrant ecosystem around green tech, startups, and patents in Europe. However, progress is not unfolding as fast as we should and would want to see. And why? Why is that? Well, we recognize few challenges that are hampering the EU clean tech competitiveness. And amongst these, we see four as the most prominent. One, internal market fragmentation and lack of integration. Two, skills shortages. Three, fragmented and incomplete regulatory environment. And four, access to finance and mobilization of private sector, which remains a significant challenge. So to reach out our ambitions for net zero goals, we need substantially more investment. We need more innovative financing instruments. And we will hear more about this and the scale-up gap later today from Jean-Baptiste Lemarrois. But despite these challenges, we see progress underway, more probably than citizens would appreciate. And this process is largely deriving from the development of a number of new green technology that are actually reaching demonstration phase and entering mass markets. The innovators are vital and vibrant. They need to secure financing resources and scale up and accelerate their deployment. To support this and make this a success story, we need more partnership. And this is really about what mission innovation is, creating and fostering. Partnering, joining forces under a platform like this one allows innovators to receive both the technology, advisory and financing support that they need to deploy their technologies. Innovators are truly at the forefront of the leadership in the new industrial era that will allow us to preserve the resources of our planet. And the EIB group itself exemplifies a successful transformation in its own way of deploying financing resources to the support of the green transition. Founded in 1958, the EIB has invested more than over €1 trillion borrowing on capital markets using our AAA rating to support green technology. And since 2017, the bank has focused half of its lending to green transition projects. Through the EIB Group subsidiary, the EIF, the European Investment Fund, the bank has supported direct innovation programs indirectly through funds for more than 2 decades. And within the group, the bank, in my department, we spearhead the bank's efforts to support Europe's green technology innovators in scaling up through direct risk investment products like early stage equity investment, growth capital instruments, and venture debt that you will hear more about later on in the day. So today the EIB is present in financing the whole innovation sort of spectrum and continuum through various instruments, and these also through some significant partnership with the European Commission. Collaboration has been a key success factors for the EIB presence in this space through engagement with governments, public and private banks, corporates, academia, international institutions, and many of the members of Mission Innovations today and collaborators are part of the long-standing EIB Group ecosystem of partners. I will mention two very prominent initiatives that we deployed with our partners, the EU Catalyst Partnership since 2021 with the European Commission and Breakthrough Energy, which accelerates deployment of low-carbon technology, making them cost competitive against fossil fuels alternative. And similarly, the City Climate Finance Gap Fund, created in 2020 with the Global Covenant of Major for Climate and Energy and other donors, which scales up climate change mitigation and adaptation in cities. This initiative is also aligned with the urban transition mission of Mission Innovation. So through this partnership, the EIB Group is continuously learning about emerging technologies, their financing needs, the challenges, and what are the best instruments to partner in support of the ecosystem. In the next 2 hours, colleagues from the European Commission, the EIB, will present some of the tools that are available in our toolkit to support deployment of green technologies and are really open and ready to engage in a two-way discussion with all participants. So we're very eager to hear ideas and explore promising projects to invest in. I wish all participants and speakers a very successful workshop. Thank you very much for your attention, and I hand over to Dirk for the continuation of the program. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Elena and Alessandro, for kicking off this webinar and giving us an introduction to the topic. So my name is Dirk Heimann. I will be the moderator today. I work as a senior advisor in institutional strategy at the EIB. I would like to thank all the speakers already for taking the time off their busy schedules and, of course, also all the participants for joining today. Let me give you a very brief overview of what you can expect from the next 2 hours. We will continue with the macro picture because we all know how urgently we need to invest more into the green transition to ensure that clean energy can play its part in averting a further escalation of the climate crisis. And we are very glad that Jean-Baptiste Leroy from the Energy Technology Policy Division of the International Energy Agency has agreed to share some of his research on global investment into the clean energy transition with us to set the scene. Right after that, we will have 5 short presentations on sources of finance for clean energy innovators, showing what types of financial support and advice are available. And in the final part of today's webinar, we will go into discussion where some entrepreneurs will share their experiences and you will have an opportunity to ask questions to the presenters. And at the very end, Niall Jacobson from the Australian Energy Ministry will wrap things up. But now let's continue setting the scene. Jean-Baptiste, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Dirk. Hi, everyone. My name is Jean-Baptiste. I work at the IEA, and in the next 10 to 15 minutes, I'll be referencing and sharing with you some of our work that we do on energy technology innovation in the framework of a net zero pathway. I just wanted to take the opportunity to also thank MI and the EIB. I think these are precisely the types of discussions that we need to have. And Alessandro was mentioning, that some of your colleagues at the EIB will be presenting some of the financing instruments that are in your toolkit. And this is precisely the things that I'm less aware of and I'm enthusiastic about learning. So I will start by maybe reframing the need for technology in the net zero pathways that we develop at the IEA. We have what's called a net zero scenario. And in that net zero scenario, we try to understand what the contributions of different technologies are to meet net zero target, net zero emissions by 2050. And there's really 2 messages here. The first is you need to deploy the existing now. So that means deploy every technology that really is already on the market now and massively by 2030. And then you need to innovate now to prepare for after 2030. So in this chart, what you can see is the respective contributions in CO2 emissions reductions by 2030. And what you can see is that by 2030, a lot of that comes from this light green, the wind and solar PV. It also comes from energy efficiency here in yellow. But the contributions from, for example, CCUS or hydrogen are actually quite minimal by 2030. And in electrification here, what you can see in this blue, we're talking more about electric vehicles and technologies that are already closer to the market. However, when we extend this to 2050, you can see that, sure, wind and solar, energy efficiency, they still play an important role. But really what matters is that there's going to be a lot of emerging technologies that need to be deployed beyond 2030. So when we talk about the innovation challenge, it's really preparing for beyond 2030. And it's not just sitting now and relaxing by 2030 and innovating later. It's about innovating now so that these technologies are ready later. We estimate that renewables, energy efficiency, and electrification can contribute to about 80% of the reductions by 2030, whereas the contribution of emerging technologies will be greater beyond that. And that's what I'm going to dwell on in just this moment. What we see, however, is that many of these technologies are not yet on track. So on this chart, which is a disclaimer, very busy, you can see for each sector what we call tracking clean energy progress. And it's this traffic lights tool that we have at the IEA. It's completely freely available on the IEA website. And for each sector, we look at each technology family and we explain whether it's on track, green, whether it needs more efforts, yellow, or whether it's not on track. in red to be on a net zero pathway. And what you can see in this chart is that most technologies are either red or yellow, and that very few of them are actually green. We have solar PV, we have EVs, we have lighting, but most technologies really need more efforts, and some of them are just really not on track. And there can be two problems here. One, a deployment problem. Second, an innovation problem. And these are slightly different. So deployment problem, meaning that the technology is often already on the market, it's already commercially viable, we need to just deploy that much more quickly. And the innovation problem is these technologies are either not cost competitive yet, or they're not performant enough, or they're just not adapted to the right use case yet. For example, in industry, heavy industry like steel, chemicals, cement, aluminum, or in heavy transport, trucks, aviation, international shipping, these are areas where we do need a lot more innovation. And that is really the challenge that we're talking about. So a few years ago in the net zero roadmap in 2021, we tried to answer the question, what's the share of the emission reductions that come from technologies that are on the market versus still under development? And we estimated that share to around 45%. 2 years ago, we started that exercise again, and it led to the 2023 roadmap. And we actually saw that thanks to advances in technologies, thanks to reductions in certain costs, actually we have a new estimate of the share of emission reductions that come from technologies still under development. And that's still over a third of these emission reductions. So even if innovation has been delivering, even if innovation is indeed accelerating and that there's more momentum, a lot of work remains to be done if we are to get on track with a net zero pathway. In this little bucket under development, we're talking about heavy industry, we're talking about heavy transport, primarily things like renewables, electric cars, and so on. These are things that we count as already on the market. Of course, there's subcomponents and sub-technologies that are still under development, like advanced batteries, new ways to extract critical minerals or decrease the use of critical minerals, and so on. But that is really not, the bulk of what we count on the market. So now, if we try to take a step back and we try to understand how innovation works, we've really understood that innovation can take a very long time. And so we need to coordinate our efforts to help compress the time that it takes. So in this chart, I'm going to show the history of certain technology developments by TRL, the technology readiness level, from 1 to 11 in the IEA scale, from a small prototype to a large prototype to a demonstration project, and then to maturity on the market. If we take technologies like wind, solar PV, or here, heat pumps in buildings, what we can see is that essentially it took about 100 years to go from a small prototype to a technology that's mature on the market. And there's been a lot of uncertainty. There's been some disruptions in certain years where, interesting findings in a lab somewhere. But essentially, it's taken a lot of time, right? And so we don't necessarily have the same amount of time if we want to be on track for 2050, because these things need to get deployed by 2030, right? So if we take other examples like lithium-ion batteries and sodium-ion batteries, interestingly, we see that these innovation cycles have been compressed. And here, the real reason behind these accelerations is because there's been strong demand for these products. For example, in the case of lithium-ion batteries, there's been increasing interest in microelectronics, which have suddenly actually enabled a lot of industry, corporates, researchers to focus on that. And at that time, around the 90s, then they actually completely left another concept on the side, sodium-ion batteries, because it was less of a stable chemistry. It just worked less. The energy density is lower. So lithium-ion batteries were really the thing. But then a few years ago, because of the problem of critical minerals, people realized, hey, but sodium-ion batteries, they actually don't require critical minerals. And so this demand for a new product created an incentive from the market for entrepreneurs to look more into that. And actually around 2010, 2015, Chinese entrepreneurs started again with sodium-ion batteries. And just in a few years, because the market incentive is so large and because of decades of previous work, of course, the innovation actually accelerated quite significantly. And now if we take even another example in heavy industry, where before, decarbonization, making it electric or making it less CO2 intensive, it wasn't so much of a topic. But because there is strong demand for these projects and products now, actually innovation has more of an incentive. And so people are actually going forward with these projects. So this is a very important learning for the community, because if there are coordinated efforts, if there is the right type of regulatory framework, the right type of funding, and the right type of incentive, you can expect entrepreneurs to seize these incentives. And that is, I think, an important learning if we want to accelerate innovation. Now, we don't track all technologies for the past century, but we track many of them in what's called the Clean Energy Technology Guide. It's a completely free database online on the IEA website, where we currently track over 550 technologies, designs, components across 25 subsectors. I really encourage you to go there, read what these technologies are about, what sectors they're trying to transform. I think that's pretty important and interesting for investors in particular. If you're looking to invest in areas that are underserved, this can be a good starting point. And of course, you're more than welcome to reach out if you have questions or you feel that there are gaps in there. Now, this acceleration for innovation calls for a greater role from government, industry, and startups. These three actors, in my opinion, have quite complementary roles. And in this chart, I'm going to show you the history of spending in each of these areas. So we see in the last decade a steady increase in global spending on energy research and development. That's what you can see in the little yellow line is the share of that is clean energy, that we count at the IEA as clean energy, because governments don't only spend on clean energy R&D. In the middle now, you can see the spending by corporate companies. And although the trend looks the same, the y-axis scale is 4 times higher for corporates than governments. The amounts that are being spent in the corporate world are far greater. And now for startups, you see a very interesting dynamic activity since the 2010s, with a little dip last year that's also consistent with the broader ecosystem of startups. What I want to bring your attention on here is that these things are complementary. These are not competitive sources of funds. Governments typically focus on the very earlier R&D stages, the public labs, the risky stuff in a lab. The corporates are often much more focused on product development, on helping scale up. And startups, in my experience, have been very useful in bringing more innovation in ecosystems in the market where there is some stagnation in innovation, or where corporates are actually outsourcing innovation into startups. In the last few years, for example, we've seen a lot of companies active in the aviation sector, for example, airlines or other sort of delivery companies investing in electric airplane startups, for example, because they're not doing the innovation in-house, but they're investing elsewhere. So these are the three sources that we identify. And if you look at the aggregate amounts being spent here, it's actually much lower than in many other sectors of the economy. So we see that there is still room for increasing these budgets. Now, I would like to bring your attention to one specific area that we focus on at the IEA that we think is very important, and that's demonstration projects. A few years ago, we estimated a need for more funding in net zero demonstration projects, which led to the pledges in Pittsburgh of 94 billion for demonstration projects. It's an area that really is at this crossroad between all actors, where capital needs are very high, risks are also very high, so we need more coordinated efforts there. So of course, we do see projects, and here are a few announcements on the screen that we're very enthusiastic about, and the EIB has been very involved in some of them. We for example, have hydrogen green steel here in Sweden last January, where the EIB actually was a contributor to this debt financing. We see some activity across the world. We do see some increasing activity, and that's encouraging. However, we don't necessarily see that across all sectors and at the necessary scale. So we have started to track these projects and understand how they're being funded. And so we have launched a clean energy demonstration projects database a few years ago that's available on the IEA website as well. We have over 300 projects listed there, but I think we're far from comprehensive yet. And what we try to do here is, understand where these projects are being undertaken and how much funding is actually flowing to these projects. So that's one. And second, we're trying to understand what the policy frameworks that support them look like. How can we share good practice between different countries? And this is really an emerging field that we're very interested in learning. The issue is that for most of these projects, it's very difficult to find funding information. So this is just a very simple pie chart. We looked at the current projects that we have in store, and we realized that most of them, actually, we don't have any funding information, either because it's not available or because it's difficult for countries to report it, because countries typically have a large program, and that program funds different projects, and it's hard to nail down a specific dollar amount to a specific project. Now, the reason I'm showing this is because as the IEA and as different knowledge partners like MI and many others, it's very difficult to provide evidence-based policy recommendations to governments or to investors if we can't actually track what's going on. If we are able to have a better understanding of the current landscape, then we can have better informed policy recommendations. So this is really a field where I would be interested in collaborating with the different people in this room to improve our global understanding of that landscape. So I will just finish with this open questions slide. It's really just questions that I'm interested in. Of course, many people can be interested in different things, so I don't want to necessarily steer anything anywhere, but this is what at the IEA we're currently asking. So which financing instruments can be available and scaled quickly, especially for demos? What types of policies do you need for these financing instruments to be put in place? What does effective public-private collaboration look like in these cases, and how do you socialize the benefits? Are there learnings from other sectors of the economy, infrastructure, project finance in different sectors of the economy, or even manufacturing, health? How can we learn from other sectors? And also, what does the picture look like in emerging markets? Because obviously, if all of the demo projects, if all of the innovation takes place in advanced economies, we're not really going to get to a net zero pathway. And of course, the bonus question is, what can we do at the IEA and with Mission Innovation as well to help throughout the process to inform investment decisions at the EIB or inform the policymakers who put these regulations in place? So that's all from my side. I hope this is being useful in setting the scene. I'm very happy to follow up with any of you if you have questions or to also answer some of them in this meeting. Thank you, and back to you, Dirk.
Thank you so much, Jean-Baptiste, for asking us some difficult questions and giving us some insight into your work at the EIA. I think your presentation showed how much work remains to be done on the one hand, but it also gave some hope on, the green technologies that are emerging and spreading maybe even more quickly than we have thought. I do believe that the next speakers will be able to give some answers to your questions, maybe especially to the first three, I would think. We will hear 5 short presentations to give you an overview of what is available for innovators at different stages, be it research projects, startups, or established industries that undergo the green transformation. And the first of the presenters is Anna Krzyżanowska. She is Advisor, Finance for Innovation at the Director General for Research and Innovation at the European Commission. And she will introduce you to the Commission strategy to bridge that financing gap. Anna, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening across the world. I'm happy to be speaking to the Mission Innovation community again. What Dirk has not kindly said is that, this is our third generation of financing at the European Commission that we're doing for financing, for bridging the gap between research and the market. Which I guess makes me a grandmother of financial instruments and dangerously shows my age. But I will start with a more general introduction of where we are on green, because this particular mandate that's just ending We are between two commissions, as if. So 5 years ago, Ursula von der Leyen, who was appointed president, had a very strong clean energy mandate to start the work very explicitly across policy, regulation, and finance to support the green transition. So the next slide, I understand someone is clicking for me. You have all the aspects that we have started working on. Some of them are advanced. We have done a lot in regulation, in adjusting European regulatory framework to enable the European Green Deal. We have done a lot to make sure that this European Green Deal transition is fair, that the people who are potential losers of it are taken on, that all the aspects, not only energy, but also a wider climate approach to both mitigation and adaptation, to the aspects related to protecting nature and to securing our food supplies, are all taken into consideration. So the most important thing of that policy was to recognize that it was transformative and therefore needed to be holistic. But we are here to talk about financing. So on the next slide, you will find a few things that we have done in order to ensure that this financing actually happens. And I'm not going to go very deeply into this because we're going to go into more details later with colleagues. But please note that it is not only that we've counted the needs at the beginning of the process, but we also made sure that our budget is very much focusing on that particular need. And I'm talking about climate more generally, but we all know that energy is a very important element of it and pivotal to its success. So the overall target within the budgets of the European Union is that 25% will go into climate mainstreaming. And for Horizon Europe, which is our main research and innovation program, that amount elevates to 35%. But it is not only about how much money we put there, it is also how the money is used. So we take the money from the emissions trading system, which on one hand gives incentives to industry to proceed with modernization and the energy transition, but on the other hand actually generates funds which we can then finance through the innovation modernization funds. We've also deepened our collaboration with the EIB group and other implementing partners around Europe. In the meantime, the EIB has become the European Climate Bank, so really taking this climate priority at the center of what they do through the InvestEU, and we'll come to that. And obviously also some ideas about how we go about the financing more generally, not only through the finance strategy, explicitly, but also making sure that everybody knows what we are talking about, and we are using the same definition through the taxonomy, through the actual elements of accounting and reporting, so that we are all counting the same things, and obviously as well in creating and sort of fine-tuning the green bond standard, so whenever we borrow money from the market for green, everybody knows what that means. So let me focus for a moment on the Horizon Europe. Next slide shows you the structure of Horizon Europe, and it's a very busy slide, so I'm not going to go into details in this, but just to give you, a feeling that within our overall financing of research and innovation, and the nuclear part is financed from a separate budget, so it's sort of dealt with differently. We are looking at 3 pillars, and these pillars represent early stage science, so really investing European excellence in science. In the competitiveness part, where we work very, very closely with industry, and energy related aspects are in our cluster 4 and cluster 5, which deals with, on one hand, the industry, and on the other hand, with the climate, energy, and mobility issues. And then the big innovation within the Innovation Europe, the European Innovation Council, our support across the board for those companies which are promising and can actually walk with us the bridge from research and into the market. Just to put some numbers into this, and not to be outshone by the IEA, who's always with numbers, the next slide shows you the overall budget. And remember, 35% of this needs to go into the green activities. It's almost coming to 100 billion within the 7-year period, which is our programming period within the European Union. Right, we have reasons to do that. On the next slide, you will see that for green technologies, we are actually quite effective in patents and publications. We are very good in early stage science, but Europe has always had a bit of a problem of getting the money and sort of getting even the mind frame into making sure that these brilliant ideas actually have a future and are promoted within the market. So the next slide, which is a little bit long, no, not this one. The next slide, which, yeah, so we've started working very closely with the financing in order to really take advantage of the leverage that we could have with public funds to incentivize private sector investment into the future. So if I can ask you to return to the slide to tell you why this was so important, it was because in terms of private sector financing and the resulting production of unicorns, Europe is actually lagging behind. So this was the reason why getting leverage, but getting also the involvement, the experience, the skills, and the different outlook of the market, first through the work with the EIB and still predominantly with the EIB, but then with also other financing partners within Europe. So if you click twice in order not to go through the leverage slides again, my role as an advisor is to align policy, regulation, and finance, and to make sure that we are able to attract capital and to make sure that the companies can grow. The next slide shows you a very classical presentation of what why do we need that bridge. The actual term of the values of that is probably known to you, but we've discovered there is more than one. And actually at every point where different institutions felt that it was their role to work, we were leaving a gap in which some businesses and a lot of people's enthusiasm was getting lost. And that is why we decided to really look at this bridging in a continuous way to make sure, as we do with Mission Innovation and its cooperation with SAM, that we have this sort of fluid transition from research through demonstration, deployment, and into the market. Let me spend a moment on our novelty, the Novelty European Innovation Council. On the next slide, very quickly, you can move to the next one, which shows that it's been a very valuable introduction in the sort of family of solutions. So we have grants, we have collaborative grants, the grants which make collaboration with the entire world a reality, and then picking these special companies which have a great promise to come on the market, we offer them grants and equity. So the Commission actually has a sort of proprietary internal venture capital fund where we put these projects to see whether through this equity investment they can attract more money in the market. And we work in close collaboration with the EIB, who acts as an advisor, just to make sure that this is really a credible proposal to the rest of the market. The overall results of it include not only the project which we've been running for 5 years now, but also the pilot project where we demonstrated that this could be a great idea. And obviously, the centaurs and unicorns are measured by market value, so they may be going up and down. But we have quite a lot of incredibly successful companies that we've picked for that particular activity. On the next slide, you have another source of financing, which is very interesting perhaps to share as a learning, our emissions trading system. Part of the revenues of that system are going into the Innovation Fund, a huge fund whose value is also moving up and down because ETS value, the value of the emission certificates may be going up and down. But if you assume that there is a 75 euros per ton of CO2, it's a huge and almost 40 billion until 2030 fund in which we can actually direct money into various sectors of energy. And a special case, and you're going to get a bit more on this in detail by my colleagues later today. On the next slide, I find this sort of fond moment where together with the EIB and Bill Gates, we have announced Breakthrough Energy Catalyst. Our collaboration with private sector really driven through how we can bring the money from the philanthropic and investment resources on the market, link them and blend them with public money in order to finance promising companies over a long period of time, again, from research to the market itself. And more generally, on all areas, including energy, we have our collaboration and support through guarantees to financing on the market through Invest in You. That's the next slide. Again, more will be said later, so I'm going to give you just a few numbers of this. It's a very good way of multiplicating public money because the guarantee, which is a relatively small one, will give us quite a lot of money in the market if and when we will celebrate the end of this particular activity in 27. The InvestEU Fund has its advisory hub, which supports all the sectors, both through program and facility development and through the support to individual companies. And we also have our dating portal where investors can meet companies together. I have seen something passing by, so I guess I need to speed up. I'm almost done. There's one more slide which tells you what we do internationally, which you probably already know. We are quite active in international negotiation, both on the climate and the biodiversity side, and we do a lot of Green Deal diplomacy, but there's also a lot of money, but both the neighborhood and our development work through an external European financing. And before I thank you, here's the lady who put it all together. Next slide is really showing that we believe in the European Green Deal. We believe this is not only a good thing to do, it is also a good business to do. And therefore, not only research and innovation, but also the market is taking this particular opportunity to all of us. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Anna, for this great and comprehensive overview of what the European Commission is doing, and let's all hope that the Green Deal stays on track and continues to be somewhat of a role model as well for the rest of the world, if I may say so. And now you will hear from our colleagues from the EIB group, each presenting in their area of expertise. I think in the interest of time, we have to try to keep in the kind of 5 to 7 minute range, please. And we'll start with Patricia Castellano. She's head of division education and public research in the projects directorate of the EIB, and you will hear from her how we support research programs. Patricia.
Thank you, Dirk. Can everyone hear me? Yeah? Okay. Good morning, everyone, dear colleagues and innovators and experts. It's really a pleasure to be here today around this innovation community. So I'm going to be brief, and I will present a couple of slides really to give you an introduction as to why the EIB supports investment into public research and development, and how. Next slide, please. Okay, thank you. So the main driver for EIB to invest in public research is essentially one that we often refer to is the notion of market failure, right? It's the fact that our activities are really rooted in the fact that the market fails to provide adequate funding for this type of activities, and essentially due to the fact that we have knowledge spillovers that investors cannot size. So EIB really as a public institution has really a key role to play in addressing these market failures and being able really to support governments. By governments, I mean all sorts of public entities and authorities in funding the research and development activities for the benefit of a society as a whole. I mean, the EIB is really a policy taker, right? And our projects really are there to support the implementation of major EU policies and instruments. And for that, we will look for projects that are justified from an economic point of view, but that are also bankable or financially viable. So our main investment programs in the public research area are usually, well, it's not usually, always aligned with EU policies and instruments, and there I essentially refer to what has been said earlier on this morning, all the strategies and initiatives that the European Commission has, especially around Horizon Europe and the European research area. And the objective, really, the ultimate objective is really to promote research excellence and really to build this innovation ecosystem. Our activities in public research are mainly with clients such as I said before, ministry, regions, university, or public research institutions. And what we do is hopefully to support a European research ecosystem that can compete at an international level. But what is very important really to keep in mind is what we do in the space of public research really is complementary to what happens in the corporate research and development. So we cannot look at one side of the picture without, analyzing the other part, which is really the private and corporate R&D. And that's what my colleagues are going to explain later on. So really, the bank is really active in the whole spectrum of research and development. And here, what we're looking at doing it from the public research is, as I say, really acting at the very early stage. If we can move to the next slide, please. So very briefly summarize here how the EIB is acting and investing in public research. So first, while our colleagues later on are going to talk about venture debt and equity, here with public research, we're essentially looking at long-term finance, right? And this long-term finance, our main clients again are governments, regions, or research institutes. So when we define an investment program for public research, we have two main areas of investments. We can support what we call tangible activities. So anything that will support research, infrastructure, and equipment that can be within a university campus or within the research facilities of individual centers. But also a very important part of our activities in public research are linked to intangible activities. And by that, we mean really we can include in the scope of our projects salaries of qualified researchers. But also what is very interesting is that we can support public entities to finance grants that are competitively awarded. So that's a very important aspect of our activities in public research. You will see here a bar which I call advisory services, and you will hear about it later this morning, but we can also couple our investments in either tangible or intangible activities with also providing to our clients advisory services. For instance, now we're looking it's a work that is ongoing with the Commission, looking at how we can improve the greening of research infrastructure, and this is financed through the advisory services. Next slide, please. Yeah, so here you have two examples of EIB investment in public research. So we have many more, but it's just to try and stick closer to the topic today of green transition and clean technologies. So 2 years ago, we worked with the region of Madrid to put in place this large investment program. So EIB provided a loan of 182 million euros to the region of Madrid to support research activities that are carried out by a network of research institutes. They are called the MDEA, but also at university campuses. And the scope of this investment program is quite substantial. And we're talking over 370 million euros of investments over close to 5 years. The EIB in this case is co-financing both intangible research activities, so as I said before, researchers' salaries, but also grants, but also R&D equipment. And there is a very strong focus in this project on financing science and technology. So there are some of these research centers that, for instance, conduct research on green hydrogen, advanced material, etc. We know that a number of activities, in particular those conducted by the Institute of Water and Energy, will also directly go towards activities on climate action. And there's also a very interesting feature of this project where we are actually fostering collaboration with industry. So we will provide grants to the region of Madrid, who then will selectively identify projects that are carried out both by large corporates, SMEs, and also research centers in order to really progress on industrial research. So that's a very interesting case in terms of really accelerating research that may ultimately also contribute to the green and digital transition. There's a second example that I would like to bring to your attention, which is one that we've done, is currently under implementation in Greece with the 2 leading research centers in Greece, where here 100% really of this operation is dedicated to research towards climate adaptation, essentially. And here, these are very specific research activities where we will contribute to finance the design and construction of a vessel that undertakes research linked to a number of research on the biological resources and environment sustainability. And the second one, it's an observatory that is going to be built in an island on the Mediterranean Sea, again conducting research on climate change and atmospheric pollution, but also activities that hopefully will contribute to improve climate projection. So we have many more of these operations, but these are quite interesting in the scope of climate and green transition. So, conscious of time, I will stop here. I remain, of course, available after for any question you may have, and you will find as well my contacts. So, would you like to engage further for potential opportunities? Thank you.
Thank you so much, Patricia. And next we will hear from Daniel Beck. He's a colleague from the European Investment Fund, a subsidiary of the EIB specialized in financing SMEs. And Daniel is a senior investment manager in the Green Technology Investment Unit of the EIF. And he will talk about venture capital and the role of the EIF. Daniel.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me this morning. I am indeed delighted to briefly present the EIF's financing activities in the cleantech market. Just as a reminder, as Dirk said, with all these abbreviations, the EIF, the European Investment Fund, is part of the EIB group, and we are covering mostly the indirect part of the European market. Our strategy is actually to trigger a large indirect impact in the targeted markets that we're looking at. For example, or typically via intermediaries, and this, for example, via guarantees that we give to banks, or also as limited partners in private investment funds. Today, I want to quickly focus on the activities that we undertake in the venture capital space. First, talking very briefly about the role of venture capital in general in terms of innovation. What we definitely see in the markets, and also in how the markets have been evolving over the last years, is that VC has become more and more one of the key drivers of innovation in Europe, and also in terms of bringing innovation to commercial application. VCs as such, so venture capitalist funds, are independent aggregators, both of private and public money. They typically invest in companies in the early stages of developments, very early commercialization, and typically also those that are not profitable yet, always with the idea to scale them fast. And what I observed also in the earlier presentation by Jean-Baptiste is that the innovation lead times and the market uptake cycles have become shorter and shorter also for deeper technologies. And this also is becoming more and more interesting for VCs. And that's also a market sentiment that we do experience. So how do we as the EIF approach, and how do we build and foster the European ecosystem, and here specifically in the climate technology space? So we have been playing an important role in building venture markets in Europe over the last 20 years, and that's across a very large range of different verticals. First, building the market as a whole, then going into sub-verticals such as cleantech. Currently, in the cleantech funds, we are, and I would say that is to some extent still unfortunate, the largest limited partner in funds that are coming to the market. We currently support more than 90% first-time teams. So we're taking a lot of risk with the teams, but they typically also pay off. We see more and more specialized teams also coming with a lot of industry experience and expertise, which is something that is definitely very positive compared to what we've seen in the past. Currently, unfortunately, we are still backing 50% of the, let's say, significant funds that are coming to the market in Europe. So it is still giving a hint on how mature, or let's say immature and still fragile, this part of the market actually is. The graph on the right also shows how serious we have taken our role over the last years, backing green technology, climate technology focused funds. So we have, or we will be having, made commitments of close to 2 billion euro until the end of 2024. Those funds are expected to leverage 3 times this amount, so the total amounts available for investment by those specialized green tech funds should be around 8 billion. So actually, for every euro we commit as the EIF, together with the mandates that we're investing, 3 euro euros come actually from external parties. The teams that we are actually focusing in the climate tech and green technology space are everything from generalist climate technology focused funds working on decarbonization, climate mitigation, climate adaptation, but also more focused on topics such as energy, which is currently still a smaller percentage, but this is going to rise over this year and for following years. But also we're looking at more rare themes such as water, blue economy, circularity. Next slide. So how does this actually impact the financing availability for green tech and climate technology startups specifically? Our specialized fund managers focus on a large range of verticals and stages. They start with, I mean, there are strategies that start in the TT space, so helping companies to spin out from universities, and that goes up to growth and even pre-IPO stage. We are also, by the way, starting to see first proposals in the area of first-of-a-kind investments. So the availability of capital actually spans across most parts of the early and growth stage market. On the graphs on the right, you see how substantially the number of new investments invested by our green tech specialized funds increased year over year over the last three years, and this tendency is going to continue. The same goes also for the total amounts invested. So in 2023, we invested via our specialized funds 550 million euro into the market and into 136 new companies. With the funds we currently back and will be backing until the end of this year, the expectation is that we will reach approximately 1,500 companies across all stages and also across different parts of the clean technology ecosystem, where 500 already have been invested as per today. The funds that we have backed so far have invested currently 1.9 billion. So there's an additional expectation of 4 to 5 billion euro of dry powder that is left for investments, and which would also come down to an average of 5.5 million per company, which obviously will in reality be much higher because there is quite a bit of fallout in the venture capital space when constructing a portfolio. As a disclaimer, the actual financing of green technology companies via EIF-backed funds is in reality even higher, as more and more of our generalist ICT funds, deep technology funds, and others also start to be looking heavily at that sector. So actually what you're seeing here is really the figures of companies backed via our specialized funds, but in reality, the figure is most likely very much higher. If you're interested in who our specialized fund managers are, I also pasted the link into the presentation where you can see those green tech focused managers that we backed under the flagship InvestEU program that was presented by the colleague from the European Commission earlier. And now back to Dirk.
Thank you very much, Daniel. And now we move on to financing companies in the growth phase. So basically building the next generation of European tech champions. And here our speaker is Irene Galvez, who heads the cleantech equity and growth capital division in the operations directorate of the EIB. Floor is yours, Irene.
Hello, good morning. Can you hear me well? See me well? Hello. It is a pleasure being here today to speak about something I'm deeply passionate about, the importance of the financing value chain for clean tech innovation. And that is because we've heard it now for a number of participants. There is a challenge when it comes to scaling up these technologies. Dirk, if you go to the next slide, please. Yes, so I think that this is a theme that is going to be quite recurrent in all of our presentations. It means that how can we make sure that our intervention, and I'm going to speak about EIB growth capital product, is actually comprehensive and forms part of a wider program, as we've seen in this case of Europe, making sure that these technologies are effectively reaching that early deployment stage that we all want to. So, Dirk, if you go to the next one, I'm going to try, by the way, if you go to the next slide, this was my agenda for today. There is a lot of content that I wanted to cover, but Dirk is giving me 5 minutes for something that I would normally talk about for hours. So I'm going to do my best, and we have the Q&A, and then you know where we live. So we'll leave it for questions and other meetings, but a few pointers that I'd like to leave you with today. One, in the form of headlines, probably. One, scaling up clean tech is hard. Two, from an European viewpoint, we have an issue going from early research and development and patents to scaling up the technologies in the continent. Three, from a public sector perspective, from the EIB perspective, we think that the financing landscape needs a product that helps fill that gap to that early deployment stage. And four, we can't do this alone. We've seen this from all of the colleagues that spoke, from the Commission, from the International Energy Agency. We need strong partnerships across public sectors of governments, industries, and clean tech scale-ups. Next one. See, I'm going fast. Very briefly, on the left-hand side, as I mentioned, we in Europe are okay when it comes to early-stage innovation, as shown in our share of patents compared in this case with the US. However, on the right-hand side, you will see that from those 10 transversal technologies, Europe actually leads only on 2 of them. So we're putting a focus when it comes to EIB on clean tech, and in this session, Dirk, if you go to the next one, about emerging clean tech. And clean tech is obviously sitting right now at the crossroads of not only climate change, but energy security and competitiveness and industrialization of the continent. So we're really at EIB putting a focus to say what is so hard about emerging clean tech, what makes it so difficult to scale from a financing point of view, and how can we best address this gap. So it's 2 things, right? If you actually look at the slide, it takes longer, and we've seen that in the presentation from the EIA colleague. It was clear that it takes longer, even with the right regulatory support. It is still not comparable to how long it would take a software company to scale up and make it there, and it takes more money. So it takes more money and it takes longer. It takes longer because all of our innovators in the clean tech space have to go through the pilot, through the demo, and through the first of a kind before they can reach the nth of a kind. And that requires significant investments in hardware and working capital facilities to reach that commercialization. And what makes it even more complicated is for investors, unless you can see that potential for scalability, the company is not investable. So you come in at the moment, the last bullet point tells you that at a point where these companies need significant amount of dollars or euros to scale up, they're still quite risky and quite uneconomical. Those first of a kinds have not reached the economies of scales that would make that fossil fuel alternative competitive. So if we go to the next slide, you'll see there, listen, there are many gaps, okay? This is not about thinking that, you know, what we're doing is going to solve the gap, but we've identified this gap, and with our growth capital product, what we're trying to do by means of direct investments. My colleague Daniel from EIF was talking about indirect. I'm talking about direct investments into innovators, is providing companies with that expertise, that combination of capital and project development expertise to help companies fill in that funding gap to early deployment. And you see on the 2 sides of that graph that you see venture capital on one side and you see commercial debt and infra investor on the other. Why do we want to accelerate and close that gap as fast as possible? That is because, as you know, access to infra equity and project finance lowers tremendously the cost of capital for these companies, and therefore can make the technology economical quicker. Just as comparison, infra funds will require an 8.5% return versus more than 25% required by growth equity and PE funds. And of course, they are able to launch much bigger tickets, so north of 100 million. The trick is that, of course, they are risk-averse lenders and funders, and they want projects that are completely de-risked and where technology is sufficiently proven. So if you go to the next slide, I'm not repeating the 35% of the technologies and all that that's been covered, but obviously that is a very, very important angle as well. So what are we doing from our team at EIB on growth capital? So we're targeting innovative growth companies that are trying to bridge both the second valley of death and the third valley of death that you saw in that slide that I was presenting below. So at two critical points in the scale-ups, that in the scale-up phase, that these companies, we feel, fall between two chairs, right? They need too much money and are still too risky for the typical venture capital playbook. And they're just, and they require higher tickets. So VC and PE cannot sustain for those, cannot cater for those. And then at the same time, they're still too risky for the larger tickets to follow. So innovative growth companies and first of a kind at the third valley of death. We covered really those 5 verticals that you see, even though, of course, we've seen a lot of investments in first of a kind in the energy storage, mobility, bioeconomy, a lot as well in Europe, and obviously decarbonization of industry, as it really still requires a lot of innovation to move forward. Dirk, next one. And so in a bit more detail, what is it that we do? We're essentially helping founders and investors that have reached a tier level of 6 and above scale up their technology with a less dilutive product called venture debt or growth capital that allows them to diversify their investor base without compromising so much on dilution, right? So we provide usually that first leverage when they have no access to any other commercial debt at that stage, maybe some working capital facilities, but we're really a complement to equity, not a complement to debt. So we are in the family of the equity type products. We're a complement to equity, and we are helping them bridge that CapEx and return gap to make them to the next phase, hopefully increasing the valuation for the next round and with less dilution, making sure they also, in the case of Europe, stay in the continent. You've got there some examples on the left-hand side of companies that we have recently supported with venture debt in their journey to scale up. So there you have Northvolt, you have Verkor as well, electrolyzer manufacturing, Sunfire, Exeter, and many others. I think, Dirk, if you go to the next one, we wouldn't be able to do this alone. And I want to make a point about saying that we have been deploying this venture debt program in partnership with the European Commission since 2015. And without that backing of the European Commission, it would have been impossible. So I think it is the perfect combination when it comes to capital and expertise put to the benefit of a very clear policy priority. Anna Krzyżanowska spoke to us about the Catalyst partnership that took that to another level by actually bringing in philanthropists into the equation and streamlining the grant component that Horizon Europe makes available for innovators through EIB. So I like, if you have more interest in this, I'd like to tell you that there is a website that you can have a look at, because it is really an interesting, very, very interesting partnership. And of course, we're also open to member state compartment where we can partner with member states along this vertical and help them channel their funds for this initiative. Dirk, I just please the last two to go back to my value chain at the very beginning. This is this is a link in everything that we're trying to do at EIB when it comes to scale up. So EIF, as Daniel mentioned, are doing indirect equity, providing much needed liquidity to all of these funds, including through the Tech Champions Initiative for scale-ups. Then we have the EIB, where we're doing the direct investments and the advisory to the EIC as well on the right-hand side. And not only that, within the equity space, but Dirk, if you go to the next one, we have our bigger cousins in the institution, the ones that are doing project finance and corporate lending. Those are the guys that we really want. You know, we see ourselves as a little bit of an internal incubator at EIB, and our aspiration is to make sure that we hand them over, like we did with Nordfall, we did with Verkor, for these technologies, like we've done with renewables when we first started piloting these technologies through the EDP, energy demo projects, offshore wind, and many, many others that we've pioneered in Europe, that we make sure that we have that link to the wider EIB ecosystem that gets them access to the large balance sheet and AAA rating benefits of this institution. And I think, Dirk, with that, you can go to the last one, maybe. You can skip this one, Pia. Well, the previous one, to say that, okay, yes, I do want to say thank you as well, but I just want to leave you with this one as a way of connecting and as a way of saying that loads of different logos makes us the largest venture debt provider in Europe. Again, thank you to the partnership with the European Commission, and we look forward to your questions. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Irene. Yeah, I think now we add the missing part of the puzzle, because to be able to access finance, of course, companies and projects often need technical and financial advice to become bankable, like we like to say at the EIB. So now the floor is for Juliette Doau-Madou, who will speak about ways to support such companies. She's the head of the Innovation Fund Unit in the Corporate Finance Advisory of the EIB.
Hi, thank you very much, Dirk. I see we're quite over time and people are probably fatigued with slides, so I shall try and do an elevator pitch version of advisory. Really, maybe to give some background as to who we are and what we do in corporate finance advisory. Essentially, we look to support clients, in-house we call them promoters, to develop, shape or scope projects, let's say, into, as Dirk mentioned, bankable project proposals that ideally that they can be supported by lending from colleagues from Irene's side, and also within the more traditional lending within EIB, the corporates, the PF lending teams. And equally, we like to support the promoters in terms of developing their project proposals for the purposes of applying to EU grants. As Anna touched upon earlier, the Innovation Fund is the largest so far. And also, we find that our clients tend to also, maybe perhaps in combination with the Innovation Fund or without, they may look to apply for national or regional grants, which are a little bit more local, let's say. But essentially, we look to support promoters to have a holistic, cohesive project proposal that they can take on beyond EIB advisory and go out into the outside world and access the requisite finance. Thank you, Dirk. Next slide, please. So what is advisory? Now, I talk from the EIB context. Of course, consultants and such, they have their own versions of what advisory is. But for us, we consider our advisory to be bespoke. It's definitely not over the shelf. We look at each project on a case-by-case basis. We look at the economic viability, the technical feasibility, and overall look at the project as a whole rather than just in terms of what EIB can do for it. So we see on the right-hand side some of the advisory suite that we offer. It could be in terms of developing the business plan or corporate strategy development, financial modeling, technology assessments too, which are conducted in partnership with our sister teams within the projects directorate. And equally, if promoters are looking to access finance in terms of equity, then we can support them to develop investor packages so that they can go onwards to discuss with equity houses and hopefully raise the seed round of equity that they need. One of the things that we often like to do with promoters is if necessary, let's say, we try to create a financing roadmap for them so they can assess where they're at, where they need to go, who they need to speak to, and about what. We try, when possible, to link promoters with contacts that we have at commercial banks or equity houses and such. We don't employ ourselves within the discussions, but we'll make the introductions, and then the commercial discussions can happen between the relevant parties. Now, on the left-hand side, you see the benefits, or a summary of the benefits, let's say, of EIB advisory support. So essentially, they're helping to guide project promoters to suitable EIB group products and also the blended finance facilities. And there we're talking, when we say blended, a combination of debt, equity, grants, but essentially putting together the financing elements needed for a project to launch into the market. Our work hopes to improve the project bankability. Now, ideally, we want projects to access finance and be funded. With help from the EIB is nice, but it's not a requisite for advisory services. But essentially, we do look to help projects maximize their prospects for EIB financing. So for promoters to say, oh, I'd be interested in EIB financing, of course, we would then make the relevant in-house connections with the appropriate lending teams. And equally there, we do not involve ourselves in the discussions, but we'll obviously work with the promoter to prepare them as to what the in-house teams would be looking for. And also we like to connect promoters with market players, as mentioned before. And also we see the advisory services as a way of accelerating the possibility of financial close. Quite often projects or the clients, they know their technologies, they know generally their markets, but there might be some gaps, and they could be a point A, and then the end of the bridge is connecting them to actual getting lending. So we like to leave them with the tools that they can walk across the bridge and get the lending from. Thank you, Doug. So here is just a sample of the project advisory support. Dirk's nudging me on, I can tell. A sample of the project advisory support available, just some screenshots so people get an idea of the work that can be delivered for their projects. So ranging there from the top, competitive or market assessments, basically, some technology assessments, SWOT analyses and such. Equally more so organizational legal structures, and they're helping to develop governance structures. Perhaps promoters are lacking that, and that's obviously quite important these days. Equally, we can look at supporting or refining their financial projections. Quite often promoters, as I said, they know the technology, but when it comes to the actual financing, they may lack or an understanding of the nuances, let's say, that are needed for EIB and also for applications to EU grants. And there we have some screenshots of financial modelling and sensitivity scenarios, usually to support the financial modelling, and equally some investor packages. All right, Doug. Next slide, please. Thank you. Now, the advisory provided is delivered under two mandates here. And mandates are whereby the European Commission has agreed with the EIB that we will perform certain services, or we will deliver certain services under certain pools of funding, let's say. So one of those is the InvestEU Advisory Hub. So therefore, we have advisory services available to projects who would be ultimately financed, ideally, under InvestEU. In terms of the advisory support, a promoter would come in and we would assess really which type of funding, whether it's InvestEU or the Innovation Fund, or they perhaps tell us they're looking specifically for Innovation Fund. But nonetheless, when a project comes through the door, we discuss with the promoters to understand, what their view is, where do they want to go with their project. Now, if we see that it's eligible for InvestEU, and they're looking really for lending, that's more so the direction we take them in terms of the advisory. And there we specifically link with an in-house lending team to get their buy-in, to understand if they have interest in this particular project, if it fits their pipeline as such. Should all the stars align, then we would deliver advisory services under that. Now, the Innovation Fund is a grant scheme. So with that, EIB does not provide grants, but here we are mandated by the Commission to provide project development assistance, so advisory still, financial and technical, to project promoters who would be interested in applying for the grant, or perhaps they have applied for the grant and have been unsuccessful, or perhaps they're looking for other funding, but they are still eligible for the Innovation Fund. And so there you'll see there's 2 application streams. A new mandate is to be signed shortly. And under that new mandate, apart from coming to us directly from the Commission, being the projects that have applied for the Innovation Fund and for whatever means or purposes have been unsuccessful and need some touch-ups, let's say, or some direction. The new option now is also available, or will also be available for project promoters to apply to EIB directly for advisory services. So neither options require promoters to firmly apply to the Innovation Fund, but a strong requirement is that the project is eligible for the Innovation Fund. Moving on, perhaps, Dirk. And here, yes, more so a summary of how you can reach us, because it's all nice and good to talk about this stuff, but how do you get to us? Now, in terms of advisory services, feel free to watch our video there. It's a little dated, but it's still a cool video. And there it focuses more so on the work of corporate finance advisory. And if you are interested and have more questions or have some concerns and such, feel free to reach out to our team in the corporate finance advisory mailbox there. But maybe to support your understanding more so of what you do before you reach out to us, there's the website for the EIB Advisory Services, which gives you an overview of the advisory work done. So not just by the Corporate Finance Advisory team, but also within other teams in our department, those that focus on public sector, those that focus on working with financial institutions. But hopefully the website will give you a flavour of the different activities that we do. And equally, there's the website there for the InvestEU Advisory Hub. So that will link you to the support that can be provided in terms of advisory under the InvestEU mandate, again, which Anna and colleagues before have touched upon too. And lastly, there is our dedicated Innovation Fund, PDA, website, which will give you some overview of what the PDA is and some of the projects that have received PDA, such as Energy Dome and Battleizer and Contessa, which I believe are former PDA recipients that are online. But hopefully that should give you an idea of what is available for promoters should they wish to go in the Innovation Fund project application direction. Thank you, Dirk. Apologies.
Oh, wonderful, wonderful. Thank you very much, Juliet. And I have to admit, it's not me moving the slides forward. That's Patrick, who is the technical and organizational mastermind in the background and would, if this were a live event, deserve a huge round of applause. So yeah, this ends the presentation part of the webinar. I know it's been an awful lot to digest. I see there are some questions coming in through Slido. Please keep them going. But like I said, before we look at the questions, we have a few brave entrepreneurs in the webinar who went through various valleys of death and survived them, and can tell us from their first-hand experience how easy or difficult it is to really access financing for cleantech innovations. Thank you all very much for taking the time to join us today. And the first one I'd like to hear from is Marcin Klopot. He is the Vice President, Corporate Development and Investor Relations at Energy Dome, a provider of an innovative long-duration energy storage solution from Milan, which I find very fascinating. Marcin, thank you for joining us today. You joined Energy Dome from the banking industry, so you know both sides. And I know you're currently working on, the next big financing round, as you would. How open is, in your view, the banking industry or the private investors to clean tech innovation, to funding clean tech innovation companies?
Yeah. Hi. Thank you for the question. Yeah, private sector. I mean, private investors. We're seeing more and more investors going into this sustainability and climate tech environment. Currently, obviously, we don't see. We see a little bit of a slowdown in terms of the investments given the environment. But especially in the past 4 years, at least from my perspective, I've seen a number of new investors coming online that are interested in the space. And they could be split into different groups. So there's financial investors, so venture funds. There's also investors like Barclays and other banks trying to get involved in many ways, either indirectly or directly investing into climate techs, because that also helps their customers reach their sustainability goals. And we also see a lot of strategic investors that either would like to get access to those novel technologies and use them in their operations, or diversify the existing operations and become more green.
Now you kind of listen to all these presentations about the various tools and initiatives and programs. Do you see anything that's missing in this ecosystem that would help innovators?
What is missing? I think the way the EIB designed the product is great, and it does help to get through various stages of development of companies. Definitely, we've been the beneficiary of the venture debt that helps incredibly, especially companies, hardware companies like ourselves, to finance the first of a kind project, which is very, very tricky to do with private investors, because when we think about hardware businesses, even when the company reaches the first of a kind status, when they're just about to develop it, a lot of investors look at this from the perspective of that is still very binary. If the first of a kind doesn't work, that means that they're going to lose all the investment. And the first of a kind is usually very expensive. It's in millions of euros, if not hundreds of millions of euros. So actually plugging that gap is very important, and it's very important for us as a company. So I think that there is a very good product, because this is a very kind of famous industry expression saying that this is the kind of the death to the company. So the innovators get through the lab, they build the first pilots, and it almost feels like the technology is there and it will be available for the market. And then they hit the first of a kind, where it's usually X times or value of the demo plant in terms of dollars or euros invested. And they're finding it very, very difficult to raise funds to actually prove it at scale. Yeah, that product is definitely helping to bridge the gap and to get to the growth investors. So we've been fortunate to work with the investment bank, and now that we're launching a new round, we're speaking to a completely different set of investors, growth investors, and what they say to us is they're not interested in taking on this is not within their mandate to take on technology risk. They only want to take the execution risk, which is scaling up those technologies.
Okay.
But you cannot scale up the technologies without building the first of a kind and completely de-risking the technology. So that's why the EIB coming in here and then helping the companies like ourselves and many other great technologies is incredibly helpful.
That's very good to hear. Thank you very much. I think this was a very good insight and kind of confirms the need to de-risk technologies. And I think I will have another good example here from Croatia. That is an established cement producer with the name Nexe that wants to implement a new technology to make a cement plant in Croatia carbon neutral, and is currently looking for finance. And we have with us Ivana Ceulic, who is Nexe's CFO. So what are the hurdles that you're facing? Can you relate to what Marcin just said?
First of all, hello to everyone. And I have to say it's always challenging when you have to find the financing sources, especially for new investment projects, because if they are innovative and new technologies, they are often very expensive and accompanied by investment uncertainty. That's the main reason why it's so important to have opportunity to apply, for example, for financing to European Union funds. Without that kind of programs, investment in innovative projects wouldn't be able, especially for the mid-size and small companies, for example, just like we are here in Croatia. And besides access to the European Union funds, it's also very important to have support from European Investment Bank. European Investor Bank support companies by providing lending and advisory expertise, and also provide some innovative finance products, which it's not which that you cannot easily found in other private sector, and help companies to become sustainable and inclusive, and help them to on its way to green transition. It's that kind of support is very important.
And I think you have also received technical and financial advisory, right? So, and it's probably even needed to be able to kind of apply for the European Union funds. Is that right?
Yes, that kind of assistance was really crucial for us. You know, it's because it's very demanding to prepare documentation for European fund application, and it's very important if you have a professional guidance and support. That way, it's much easier to carry out the whole process. And I have to admit, it was a pleasure for me to be part of this team. So yes, it was a pleasure.
Wonderful. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
With one other example before I kind of open up for the speakers to react is a company that has rather successfully applied for financing, and that's Betterlyzer, a Dutch company that has developed an electrolyzer combined with a battery to even out imbalances in electricity supply while producing green hydrogen. And Gert Wassens is a fundraising associate at Betterlyzer. And I would like to ask him, what's your best advice for cleantech innovators to access the financing needed to grow?
Thank you, Dirk, and good morning all. Thank you for having me and for the interesting session so far. That's a rather broad question, right? But I think if I link it to the EIB funding that we have received, it maybe is about a few things, right? So I think it is about building a a credible plan that is ambitious but also realistic. I mean, we are in a space where it's very difficult to plan because, well, we've talked about Valley of Deaths, and I think we're in the midst of at least one of those, trying to develop the first of a kind battleizer projects, while also realizing and developing a factory to actually produce these battleizer stacks that we can sell to customers. So I think having a credible plan that you truly understand and can convey to investors, EIB or anyone else, builds trust, and you also know what the weak points are. Maybe a second point is about the network that you are building with partners, with the EIB, with investors, which if they are truly, if it's truly a partnership, then it can give you a lot, not only financing, but also expertise and network. And we've tried to do that with the Technical University of Delft, that we have a long-standing relationship with. Actually, the technology is a spin-out from that university. So we hope to keep them as a friend for as long as possible. And probably the third thing is, I mean, we are developing a completely new technology, but at some point we will become a production, or more like a production company, where we do R&D but also do production or assembly of the battleizer stacks. And that experience and that knowledge is already out there. So I think it's already also about, yeah, what knowledge and experience can you find in other industries that can help your business as well.
Okay, so I would like to play the ball back to the speakers for them to react. I saw that I think Irene was already itching to say something. Is that right?
Not really. I was just,
Okay.
first of all, I'd like to thank, obviously, the innovators for their comments and the feedback, because this is what we're here for, to be useful. And I wasn't really itching, and I mean, if you want me to target any particular point, let me know. I was mostly nodding and saying, you know, I wish I could say you're absolutely right to everything they're saying, and nothing in particular.
Good. Yeah. Anyone who wants to react to what the entrepreneurs have said? Maybe you can just raise your hand. That's not necessarily the case, and the speakers are probably exhausted. Then we have. I can take the opportunity to combine a question we had through Slido, which relates to how the cooperation between private sector and universities can be improved with bringing someone in that I think knows a lot about this, and this is Tanya Suni. She is from the Mission Innovation Community, and she's head of exploitation and impact at Click Innovation in Finland. Recently talked about helping research teams to get ready to commercialize their technologies, including finding financing. And Tanya, maybe in your experiences, what can be done to transfer these excellent research results and the patent applications and all that we heard about the various presentations to a commercially successful, quickly scaling up innovation product.
Well, thank you very much. It's very nice to be here, and I've really enjoyed the excellent presentations. But I have to say that I would have asked the same questions to this community here that we have been hearing from. But I can tell you a little bit about what we are trying to do. So yes, I run the exploitation and impact work package at the Clean Energy Transition Partnership, which is one of the co-funded partnerships of Horizon Europe, and it's under Cluster 5, Climate Mobility and Energy. And what we tried to do there from the beginning was to find out from our project consortia. So what we do, we fund 3-year-long international projects on energy innovations, both integrated solutions and key technologies. And the first thing we did, we approached these consortia to ask what they feel they need to get forward. So our job really is to try to support these projects in as many ways as we can. And the first thing we found, which wasn't really surprising because all the literature and my previous experience also points to these facts, is that the first thing they wanted to know was about getting funding for demonstration and going forward, obviously. But two other things that were equally interesting to them were understanding business creation. So that is something that they really don't have, even though they have on average 4 to 5 industrial partners in their consortia. My interpretation is that it's still the researchers that are involved mostly in the projects and heading the projects mostly. So they need some kind of support for business development, business model development, business plans. That's also something that Horizon Europe already requires from its projects in general. So that's something they want to know about. And the second thing was societal readiness. They use different terms, societal relevance, societal engagement, policy influencing, because as we have heard today, policy plays a really important role in creating the demand that can then accelerate the market uptake. And in terms of the partnership, we have several impact pathways or impact goals, and the two main ones related to this discussion today are demonstrations for integrated solutions, because as you know, the energy system, the upcoming energy system must be integrated because it needs to integrate the different renewable energy carriers and sources. And the other thing is accelerated market uptake. So what we try to do is to make sure that we do whatever we can and the best we can to equip our consortia with the necessary knowledge and information, and so that they know where to get help. So for that, this discussion has been really, really helpful. The practical things we do are threefold. First of all, we have training for the consortia. We have training webinars on issues like validation with stakeholders, commercialization, and societal readiness. And we are moving on to exploitation in general and things like that. And we always try to respond to the needs of our funded projects. So we regularly ask them what they need and how they have felt, and we try to get feedback for the things we do. So the training is one thing. The second thing is what we call an impact network, where we try to offer the consortia and also the applicants a network of intermediary stakeholders from the kind of exploitation pathway from the lab to the market. So starting from the building of the value chain, the technology providers, the service providers, to industry associations, to commercialization partners, so on and so forth, and finally even to startup incubators. The TRL levels that we address, the range is really, really wide. So we go from even TRL 2 and 3 up to TRL 8. But since we are a co-funded partnership, this depends on the national funding agencies and what TRL levels they can support. So I'd say my gut feeling is that the average TRLs we are looking at range from TRL 3 to maybe 5, and they aim at getting to 6, some even to 7 or 8. But anyway, market and commercial readiness is really, really important. And that's what we are trying to train them to do. And the third thing we do, we have a library and a toolbox of methodologies that the consortia can then utilize when they work with their stakeholders. So we try to give them kind of a holistic approach. So if I can ask questions here from the speakers, I would like to ask you in general, you mainly talked about companies that already have commercialized or are commercializing their products. But we are now, in my case, talking about publicly funded consortia with innovations that are not yet commercialized. And in that stage, they can go up to TRL 7 even before they get commercialized. So what advice would you give our projects, or what motivation would you give them? How do you think, or how would you say what should they do to become as attractive as possible to the funding of the next stage when they are approaching the first valley of death? So what would you suggest that they do, and what are you looking for when you evaluate the projects that you, or the innovations or the companies that you actually end up funding yourselves? Thank you.
I would be happy to start if Dirk agrees.
Sure. I realize I had my microphone muted. Sorry. Yes, please.
Okay. Look, I mean, it's an excellent question. And, you know, when I said that the bridge to bankability needs to be, it may be narrow because there's never enough money, but it needs to be strong and stable. And indeed, within the Innovation Council, we already start with either individual researchers or consortia if and when there is a high potential idea. But overall, it's been a very long discussion within the Commission to what extent we should mandate or even force the consortia to really describe the next step and monitor how this next step is done. At the moment, these result utilization pathways are voluntary. Our funders, the member states, are quite uneasy about making them mandatory. But I think that there is already a tool and a lot of guidance within the system to really do what I believe is of key importance, and that is to start thinking from the perspective of your best result you can imagine, and then working backwards. Because it's only by feedback from the companies you are working with that we can understand whether we're not leaving the gaps and holes in that bridge. So to me, on our side, we really need to invest more in understanding your pathways, but we need to be very insistent that no public euro is put on a project which is what I call we will see project, right? There has to be the next stage. And if it's public at early stage, maybe a publication, maybe sharing with the academic community, but there's also quite a lot of things which could end up in the market, and you need to know how you want to get there if you're successful. Now we put it not only within the EIB group under InvestEU, the advisory service on this. There's quite a lot of business administration services within the Innovation Council, as is a booster project in which we actually call on consortia and early stage companies to really work with them on the, you know, how to develop this result valorization pipeline. And finally, it's one of the best kept secrets, but can be used everywhere. We actually do have a big database of the research results where you can find partners, when you can find people who have done what you want to do in the past. It's not the best interface in the world, but it starts getting really filled out with good results. So that's what I can offer as a suggestion.
Okay,
Thank you very much.
I hope that's useful. It clearly is. Yeah, I'm afraid we'll have to start wrapping it up here. I know there have been more questions, and there was also one entrepreneur I had wanted to bring in, but I'm afraid we are run out of time. Luckily, I don't have to summarize this webinar because there was so much in it. I wouldn't know where to start and where to end, but fortunately, someone else will do this for us. And that someone is Niall Jacobson, Assistant Director of the International Climate and Energy Division in the Australian Department of Energy. Niall, let us hear what your takeaways are.
Thank you, Dirk. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone. I'd like to begin by thanking the Mission Innovation think tank for inviting me to give some closing remarks at what has been a very informative event on unlocking finance for clean energy innovation. Now, I don't think I could do everyone justice by trying to summarize the event in 3 to 5 minutes. But what we have heard today is really the crucial importance of innovation to help us meet our 2050 goals. We've heard that while clean energy innovation has accelerated in recent years, more is needed to unlock the next generation of clean technologies. We've had some very informative presentations and discussions on financing tools available to clean energy innovators, insights on how these can be leveraged, and I've heard perspectives on how the European Commission, the European Investment Bank, and the Investment Fund are trying to address some of the gaps identified by our clean tech innovators, particularly the various valleys of death that a number of our presenters spoke about. So I think that these discussions have really underscored the critical role of financing in accelerating the deployment of innovative clean energy solutions. And if I may, I'd like to take a moment to very briefly reflect on Australia's experience. In Australia, our emissions reduction and renewable energy targets have spurred significant investment in wind and solar power, making Australia a global leader in renewable energy adoption. But the challenge remains to ensure that these investments translate into tangible benefits for Australians, particularly local communities. Financing mechanisms must aim to bridge the gap between ambition and action. In Australia, we have several public organisations that support research, development, demonstration, and early stage commercialisation of clean energy technologies through co-investment with the private sector. This includes the Australian Renewable Energy Agency and Clean Energy Finance Corporation, who have collectively provided almost 14 billion Australian dollars in funding and support to clean energy projects and have leveraged additional private sector investment for a total public-private investment of over 50 billion Australian dollars. Their combined efforts have not only driven down the costs of clean energy solutions, but have paved the way for their widespread adoption. In particular, ARENA's commitment to bridging the gap between research and commercialisation is crucial for unlocking finance and ensuring that cutting-edge innovations can thrive in the market. This model of targeted investment and strategic support, we think, can serve as a bit of an inspiration for similar initiatives worldwide and highlighting the importance of coordinated efforts in achieving a clean energy future. Earlier this year, our government also announced it's investing 22.7 billion Australian dollars over the next decade to build a future made in Australia. And this plan will play a critical role in unlocking finance for clean energy innovation by attracting and enabling private investment, enhancing research capabilities, and promoting collaboration between industry and academia. A key element of this plan includes a $1.7 billion innovation fund, which will support innovation, commercialisation, pilot and demonstration projects, and early stage development in sectors including renewable hydrogen, green metals, low carbon liquid fuels, and clean energy technology manufacturing, such as batteries. As we look ahead, unlocking finance for clean energy innovation will only continue to grow in importance. Governments, financial institutions, and private investors must work together to create enabling environments for sustainable investment. This includes developing innovative approaches to de-risking investments and attracting capital at scale. And moreover, transparent and consistent policy frameworks will be crucial to providing the long-term certainty that investors need. One of the pivotal players in this area is Mission Innovation, which not only focuses on increasing government investment in clean energy R&D, but also emphasises the importance of private sector engagement and international collaboration. By sharing knowledge, resources and expertise through Mission Innovation, including through events like this webinar, members can work towards accelerating the pace of innovation and bring clean energy technologies to market faster. This collaborative spirit is essential for overcoming the technical and financial barriers that often impede the deployment of clean energy solutions. In closing, I'd like to thank the Mission Innovation think tank, the European Investment Bank, and all the presenters and panelists for your valuable contributions today. It's clear that the road ahead is challenging, but also filled with opportunity, and I look forward to continuing these discussions in the future. Thanks, Dirk.
Thank you very much, Niall. Bang on time. And let me thank you all very much, the speakers, the entrepreneurs that told us about their experiences, the participants that asked questions, that listened and hopefully learned as much as I have. And again, especially Patrick, who has been the technical organizational mastermind behind this event, and also Ingrida and Tom, that we had a little group in preparing this webinar. Sorry for all the questions that we haven't been able to answer. We will get back to you. Let me say that this event has been recorded, so you can watch it again or forward it to colleagues and friends. And Mission Innovation, as has been announced by Elena in the beginning, will produce a report summarizing the outcome of this event that we will, of course, then share with you. If there are any more questions or ideas, or if you want to reach out to one of today's speakers, and many of them have shared their details in their presentation, so please feel free to reach out. Or you can also write to the email address that you will see on the next slide, I think. Yes. Or please also feel free to get in touch with me directly. So have a nice day, evening, night, everyone, and thank you all very much.